The towel dropped from my hands, but I didn't flinch. Her laugh, a dry, hollow chuckle that bounced off the laundry room tiles, hung in the air like mildew. "You're lucky I even let you touch me." That's what she said. Like I was some leper who'd won a raffle. Like decades of providing, fixing, covering her mistakes, and paying off her credit card messes were just some pathetic tribute she tolerated out of politeness. She turned, humming, tossing her blouse into the dryer like nothing had happened. I just watched her. Not angry, not even sad. Something quieter, sharper. I folded the last t-shirt, that old one from the state fair we went to, before her veneers, before her Pilates instructor with the stupid name, before she stopped asking how my day was. I folded it with more care than I'd handled her in months. Then I placed it neatly on the stack and walked out. In the hallway, I heard her phone buzz. A giggle. Another message. Another little compliment from whoever she thought was her escape hatch. Her voice changed when she texted lately. Eerier, like she was suddenly 20 again. I used to like that sound. Now it just reminded me how good liars always enjoy the setup. I passed the hall mirror and looked at myself. Wrinkled, maybe slower than I was at 40. Sure, but I built machines that could carve titanium to half a human hair's width. I ran a team of 20 men who didn't dare miss a measurement. I wasn't some slob hoping for scraps of affection. But in this house, I was a placeholder. And placeholders don't argue. We execute. I went downstairs into the office. That drawer hadn't been opened in a while. Not since I printed out her client meeting calendar from iCloud and noticed it included one too many Tuesday dinners at the Burstone. Conveniently, never billed to the brokerage account. Inside the drawer was the box. A small, smooth oak box I carved myself after retiring. It was supposed to hold cufflinks. Instead, it held clarity. I opened it. Empty still. Not for long that I flipped open my laptop. No rush, no drama. Just a man doing what he always did, cataloging, protecting, cleaning up someone else's mess. The folder was still there, waiting for the day she smirked one time too many. First up, email printouts. A realtor friend of hers, Celeste, had CC'd her on some messages about fun weekends in Ridge Hill. Except the dates matched exactly with the retreats she claimed were for training. One even included a rental car receipt in Vanessa's name, with a second driver added. Not me. Then the texts. I'd synced her phone to the family iPad 6 months ago. She never noticed. Thought it was just for streaming Netflix in the guest room. One thread stuck out. Can't wait to see you outside the sheets for once LOL. He responded with a thumbs up and a picture. Him, shirtless in the mirror of a hotel bathroom. I recognized the wallpaper. The Burstone again. Funny how betrayal has a scent. That place always smelled like lavender and stale desperation. She came down later that night, makeup off, wearing that smug little robe she wore when she wanted to play affectionate wife. You didn't say goodnight, she said, fake concern painting her tone. I figured you were tired of touching me, I replied, and I smiled when I said it. She blinked, then muttered, "You're being dramatic." I nodded slowly, like a man who didn't mind being underestimated. Because men like me, we don't need second chances. We need evidence. The house went quiet around 11:17 p.m. She'd dozed off in bed, tablet sliding off her chest, some real estate podcast still droning on. I stayed in the office, the desk lamp painting everything in amber. The printer clicked on. The first of the emails began to slide out. Celeste's messages. Forwarded flights. Not listed under our joint account. Vanessa always thought I was the kind of man who didn't check receipts. Maybe that was true, but I checked patterns. And people like her always left fingerprints that I organized the emails by date. Chronology matters when you're about to dismantle someone's sense of safety. Then came the texts. I opened the iPad. The screen was already unlocked. She never realized the backup sync was still on. In her head, tech was just wires and chargers. To me, it was leverage. I didn't rush. She'd call me slow for years. You move like you're buffering, she once joked in front of friends. They laughed. I smiled. Because slowness isn't weakness, it's precision. I took screenshots of the messages she'd sent between showings. Once, with location tags still attached. I needed that last night, she wrote. Let's do a quick lunch before I head home. Timestamp, 1:42 p.m. She told me she was stuck in a board meeting. The he in question? A contractor we once hired to fix our deck. I'd offered him a beer. He thanked me like a son. I scrolled further. Her tone with him was sweet, sugary. Nothing like how she spoke to me anymore. One message chilled me more than the others. He's nice but dull. A placeholder. My life started late. Dull. Placeholder. My knuckles went white against the edge of the desk, but I didn't let it sit. I breathed out, clicked save, and dropped the files into the USB folder labeled June Justice. Encrypted. Backed up. Copied 3 times. One flash drive. One cloud. One external drive in the safe. When you build something for years, you learn redundancy is survival. By the time the first light of morning bled through the blinds, I had enough material to bury her in any court from here to Sacramento. But I wasn't in a rush to go public. Information is like cement. Pour it too early and it's messy. Let it set and it becomes unbreakable. Vanessa came downstairs in yoga pants and a messy bun, humming that same tune she always hummed when she thought she was untouchable. She grabbed a mug from the cabinet without looking at me, poured her coffee, added 2 pumps of that overpriced vanilla syrup, and sat across from me at the kitchen island. "You're up early," she said, eyeing the open laptop in front of me. "Couldn't sleep." She sipped her coffee like she was in some commercial, completely at ease. The smugness was almost impressive. "You should try melatonin," she offered. I ordered a bottle. "Works wonders." I looked at her over the rim of my mug. "You've been ordering a lot of things lately." That froze her for half a second. Barely noticeable, but I catch those things. She recovered quickly, forcing a laugh. "What? Like toilet paper and dog food?" "Scandalous." I smiled. "And flights to Ridge Hill." The laugh died in her throat. Her eyes narrowed just enough for me to know I'd hit something raw. "What are you talking about?" I tapped the trackpad, turning the screen toward her. The email thread glowed in the morning light. Celeste confirming the hotel reservation, the second driver listed, the check-in date stamped perfectly against one of her training days. Her jaw tightened, but she still had fight left in her. "Are you seriously snooping through my stuff? This is invasive, you know that." "Invasive," I repeated slowly. Funny word coming from someone who's been inviting contractors into more than just the backyard. That was the first visible crack. Not big, not enough to make her crumble, but enough to let a sliver of reality through. Her eyes flicked toward the hallway, like she was checking for an escape route or witnesses. "You're being ridiculous," she said finally, pushing back her chair. "If you have a problem, maybe you should. I don't know. Try talking to me instead of playing detective." "Talking works when both parties are telling the truth," I said. "You stopped doing that a long time ago." She stood there for a beat, mug in hand, shoulders tense. Then she forced a light chuckle and headed upstairs. I let her go. I wasn't trying to win the morning. I was setting the stage for the entire play. The rest of that week, I didn't push. I didn't accuse. I didn't even bring it up again. I let her think she'd gotten away with it. Let her settle back into that lazy confidence. Because when you want to break someone who thrives on control, you don't confront them head on. You let them walk into the trap themselves. I went about my routines. The morning coffee. The afternoon workshop in the garage. The Thursday lunch at Miller's Diner with my friend Todd. All the while, I was building a new folder, the Burstone Project. Every detail went in. Timestamped GPS data, screenshots of her showing houses while standing in hotel lobbies, receipts she thought she'd hidden by charging to a separate card. By Friday, I had something extra, a text from her contractor friend, thanking her for last night and asking when they could try the hot tub again. He'd sent it at 6:43 a.m., right before she came home in her gym clothes, claiming the spin class ran long. That one, I printed on glossy paper. Frame-worthy, in a twisted sort of way. Saturday morning, I made breakfast like I always did. French toast, bacon, fresh berries. She came down in her robe, scrolling her phone. "Smells amazing," she said, kissing my cheek like a politician kissing a baby. We sat. We ate. We made the kind of small talk people make when the air is thick with things unsaid. Then, halfway through her second piece of toast, I slid the glossy photo across the table. She picked it up, glanced at it, and set it down like it was a grocery list. "You're unbelievable," she muttered. "No," I said evenly. "I'm patient. And I'm thorough." Her head snapped up. "So what? You're collecting these? You gonna pin them up like trophies? Or are you hoping I'll break down crying and beg for forgiveness?" I leaned back in my chair. "Neither. I'm waiting for the right time to use them." That got her attention. The fork stopped midair. "Use them?" she asked. "In court. In negotiations. Maybe even somewhere more public, if it comes to that." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For the first time, she looked like she was calculating, like she'd just realized this wasn't a game she was guaranteed to win. That night, she was quieter than usual. Not submissive. Vanessa didn't have that gear, but cautious. I caught her watching me a few times, like she was trying to read my next move. What she didn't realize was, the real next move was already in motion. Earlier that day, I'd taken the June Justice folder to a friend of mine, Eli, a retired detective who now worked private cases. He was the kind of guy who could make a whole life story appear from a single receipt. Eli flipped through the pages with that slow, deliberate nod of someone who's impressed but doesn't want to say it out loud. "This is comprehensive," he said finally. "Comprehensive enough to give me an edge?" I asked. He smiled. "Comprehensive enough to end her." That was good to hear. But I wasn't ready to end her yet. No. First, I needed her to know she was losing control. I wanted her to feel the ground shifting under her feet every time she thought she'd regained balance. The next week, I started small. I had my lawyer send a routine request for financial disclosures. Nothing alarming on the surface, but detailed enough that she'd know I was looking closely at the accounts. I adjusted my schedule, coming home early a few days without warning. I started locking my office again. She noticed. One night, she came into the living room while I was reading. "You've been different lately," she said, leaning on the doorway. "Have I?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah, distant. Like you're, I don't know, planning something." I closed the book and set it on the table. "Funny. I was thinking the same thing about you." She didn't answer, just stared for a moment before walking away. And that's when I knew the crack I'd seen at the kitchen table was widening. She was starting to wonder just how much I knew, and that uncertainty, it was going to do half my work for me. The oak box in my desk was no longer empty. It held printouts, USB drives, and one small item I hadn't told anyone about yet. A hotel key card from the Burstone, room 412. I'd gotten it from Eli, who'd done some quiet work with a contact in housekeeping. He didn't tell me what he'd found inside the room that day. He just handed me the key and said, "Keep it. You might want to return it to her at the right moment." That right moment was coming. I could feel it. She thought I was building a case. She was half right. I was building something else, too, a stage. And when I was done, she wasn't just going to lose me. She was going to lose everything she'd built her new little life on. The kind of ending you never see coming until the curtain drops. And I was already holding the rope. By the time the second week rolled around, Vanessa had stopped asking casual questions and started circling me like a cat unsure if it wanted to pounce or retreat. I could feel her studying my routines, trying to figure out if I was bluffing, if I'd really found something that could damage her, or if this was just one of my paranoid phases, as she liked to call them. She didn't know the half of it. The folder in my desk had grown thick enough that it barely fit in the oak box anymore. Eli's work had been precise. Time-stamped photos, bank statements that bled into timelines, even a cross-reference of hotel bookings with the contractor's job schedule. There was no wiggle room for her to talk her way out. Still, I wasn't ready to swing the hammer. Not yet. There's an art to revenge. Rush it, and you rob yourself of the satisfaction. The opening act came in the form of a dinner party. Vanessa loved hosting, loved the performance of being a perfect hostess, her wine glass always just full enough to sparkle under the dining room light, her smile perfectly measured for each guest. I suggested we invite a few of her real estate friends, plus one of my colleagues from the engineering firm. "Why him?" she asked, brow furrowing. "He's thinking of buying a house." I lied. What she didn't know was that my colleague, Peter, had an impeccable poker face and a knack for asking questions that sounded innocent but were actually surgical. The night of the dinner, I watched her float around the room, charming everyone. I stayed quiet, sipping my drink, letting Peter steer the conversation until it drifted, by accident, to the Burstone Hotel. "Oh, I've stayed there a few times," Peter said casually, forking a piece of chicken. "Funny place. Always smells like lavender." I didn't look at Vanessa, but I could feel her stiffen across the table. Peter kept going. "Last time I was there, I ran into a guy who said he'd been working on some woman's deck renovation. Contractor type. Can't remember his name." "Oh, what was it?" Her wine glass clinked against the table as she set it down a bit too hard. "Small world," she said flatly. Peter smiled, the kind of smile you use when you've got someone pinned and you know it. "Yeah, very small." The rest of the evening, she barely looked at me. That was fine. I wasn't there for eye contact. I was there to plant the seed that other people knew more than she thought. The next move was financial. I logged into our joint account and began shifting funds. Nothing dramatic, just subtle enough to avoid triggering automatic alerts. The savings account we'd once called the Italy Trip Fund, a trip she'd stopped talking about long before she stopped asking how my day was, dwindled from $14,000 to $3,200 in less than a week. The rest went into an account she didn't know existed, one I'd opened years ago when I still trusted her but didn't trust the economy. She noticed on day 4. "Where's the Italy fund?" she demanded, barging into my office. I moved it. Moved it. To where? A safer place. She crossed her arms. "That's our money, Daniel." I closed my laptop and looked at her, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make her blink first. "No, it's my money. The Italy trip? That was our plan. You stopped making plans with me, remember?" Her lips pressed into a thin line, and she stormed out. Another hairline crack. Eli called that Friday. "You ready for the wild card?" he asked. Define wild card. I got a copy of the Burstone's guest ledger from last month. Your wife's name is there. So is the contractor's. Same weekend. Same room number. And here's the kicker. There's a third name on a different day, 1 week later. My stomach didn't drop. I'd stopped feeling shocked days ago. Third name. Guy named Greg. Works in sales at a car dealership 2 towns over. I did a little digging. She's been in his sales records twice this year. No vehicle purchases. So, make of that what you will. I made of it exactly what Eli hoped I would, an opportunity. Sunday morning, I printed the ledger and placed it in the oak box, right on top. Then I did something I knew would gnaw at her. Left the box unlocked, just barely ajar, on the desk in plain view. I didn't have to wait long. That afternoon, while I pretended to fix a squeaky cabinet door in the kitchen, I heard her upstairs in my office. Drawers sliding open, the faint shuffle of paper. She wasn't as stealthy as she thought. The oak box creaked when you opened it, and I knew the exact sound. When she came downstairs, she acted casual. Too casual. "Did you get much done today?" she asked, flipping through a magazine she clearly wasn't reading. "A bit," I said. "You?" "Oh, just the usual." We both knew she was lying, and I wanted her to know that I knew. By midweek, her composure was starting to slip. She'd answer texts with clipped replies, take phone calls in the garage, and spend more time than usual locking the bathroom door. She didn't mention the oak box, but her eyes flicked toward it whenever she passed the office. Thursday night, she tried a new tactic, seduction. She came into the living room wearing the silk robe she hadn't touched in months, hair loose, glass of wine in hand. "We've been off lately," she said, easing down next to me. "I think we should try to reconnect." I glanced at her, then back at the TV. "We don't need to reconnect. We were never disconnected. You were just connected to other people." Her hand froze halfway to my shoulder. She pulled it back slowly, like she'd touched something hot. The final piece of the stage came together on Saturday. I told her we'd been invited to a small charity gala downtown. Casual enough to be believable, formal enough to make her prepare. What she didn't know was that the gala was a private dinner I'd arranged at a boutique venue, complete with a few carefully chosen guests. Eli would be there. So would Peter. And so would 2 people she'd never met, a divorce lawyer and a financial mediator. When we arrived, she looked radiant, hairstyled, makeup flawless, dress that probably cost more than my first car. She was ready to play the role of the charming wife. Halfway through the first course, I stood, tapped my glass, and said, "I have an announcement." She smiled, expecting something flattering. "I'd like to introduce everyone to the reason I'm making a major change in my life." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was the Burstone ledger, the contractor's messages, and the photo from Greg's sales office security camera. I handed it to her, in front of everyone. The room went quiet. She opened it, glanced at the first page, then the second, then froze on the third. I didn't say another word. I didn't have to. The stage lights were on, the curtain was up, and the audience was exactly who I wanted it to be. And Vanessa? She'd just realized she was the show. For a moment, no one breathed. The only sound in the room was the faint hum of the air conditioner and the slow, deliberate slide of paper as Vanessa turned another page. Her manicured fingers trembled slightly, though she tried to mask it by repositioning the packet on the table. She didn't look at me first. She looked at the divorce lawyer sitting 3 seats down, then at Eli. then at Peter, who was smirking like he'd just won a silent bet with himself. Finally, her gaze landed on me. What is this? It's a table of contents for the last 6 months of your life, I said calmly. Consider it a courtesy copy. Her lips parted in mock disbelief. You think you can just ambush me like this? In front of strangers? Not strangers, I corrected. Witnesses. The lawyer cleared her throat politely. Mrs. Blake, I'm here to facilitate a discussion if you'd like to address any of these items before they proceed into the formal record. Vanessa's eyes flashed. Formal record? You're filing this. I'm archiving it, I said, pouring myself another glass of water. Where it ends up depends on you. She set the papers down a little too forcefully. You've lost your mind, Daniel. This is harassment. No. Eli cut in, voice low but steady. It's documentation. There's a difference. I didn't need Eli to back me up. But the effect was delicious. She was used to controlling the narrative in every room she walked into. Now, 3 different people had chipped away at it before dessert was even served. We made it through the rest of the meal on autopilot. Small talk between everyone but her, who barely touched her food. She laughed once, too loudly, at something Peter said, but it landed wrong, jagged. When the plates were cleared, the mediator suggested we step into a side room for privacy. I agreed. Vanessa followed, clutching her evening bag like it contained an escape hatch. The side room was all exposed brick and dim lighting, meant for romantic toasts, not marital autopsies. I sat at the head of the small table. She sat across from me, angled her body away, and said, You think you're clever. You think this little stunt is going to scare me into crawling back or handing you whatever you want. I leaned forward. I don't need you to crawl, Vanessa. I need you to understand the math. Math, she scoffed. 6 months of evidence. 3 separate partners. 2 joint accounts with suspicious withdrawals. 1 mortgage in both our names. And 0 hesitation on my part to let a judge see all of it. Her jaw worked silently for a moment. Then she said, You're bluffing. You wouldn't humiliate me like that. You've already done that yourself, I replied. In laundry rooms, hotel lobbies, and text messages that would make your mother faint. She flinched, just a fraction, but it was enough. The mediator slid a slim folder across the table. Mr. Blake has provided a preliminary division proposal. If you'd like to review. Vanessa snatched it up, flipped through, and let out a sharp laugh. You're out of your mind. You think I'm giving up the lake house. Think of it as me letting you keep your reputation, I said. She shoved the folder back. Not happening. Then the stage gets bigger, I said simply. And the audience? Much, much wider. For the first time since I'd slid the packet to her at dinner, she didn't have a retort ready. She just sat there, staring at me like she was trying to figure out where the man she'd been married to had gone. We left without resolution. That was fine. I hadn't expected her to fold on the first hand. This was poker, not blackjack. You let your opponent think they still have a chip stack worth protecting. In the car ride home, she didn't speak. Neither did I. The silence wasn't awkward. It was a contest, one she was destined to lose. When we pulled into the driveway, she got out first, slamming the door harder than necessary. I stayed in the car for a moment, watching her disappear into the house. Eli's voice echoed in my head from our last phone call. You don't have to beat her in one move. You just have to keep her off balance until she beats herself. Over the next week, I played the role of the unbothered husband perfectly. I went to work, I went to the gym, I grilled steaks on Wednesday night like nothing had happened. I didn't bring up the dinner, the evidence, or the lawyer. Vanessa tried twice to bait me into an argument. Once by accidentally mentioning the contractor's name while on speakerphone with a friend, and once by leaving an open suitcase on the bed like she was about to go somewhere. I ignored both. That was the trick. Silence wasn't just golden, it was a mirror. She was forced to sit with her own reflection. Friday evening, she finally cracked. I was in the garage sanding a piece of oak when she appeared in the doorway. We need to talk, she said. I set the sander down, dusted my hands. Talk about what? You can't just ruin me over some fling. I smiled, small, deliberate. Which fling are we discussing? Her nostrils flared. You know what I mean. I do, I said. I also know you're not used to consequences. But here's the thing, Vanessa. Consequences don't care if you think they're fair. She stepped into the garage, crossing her arms. You really want to blow up both our lives? For what? Pride? No, I said, meeting her gaze. For accuracy. for making sure the story doesn't get rewritten without my input. She stared at me for a long time before shaking her head and walking out. But her walk wasn't confident anymore. It was tight, clipped. That night, I opened the oak box again. The ledger was still there, along with the key card Eli had given me. I ran my thumb along its smooth plastic edge, thinking about the right moment he'd mentioned. It was coming. Because now, Vanessa wasn't just worried about what I had. She was starting to imagine what else I might have that she hadn't seen yet. That kind of paranoia eats a person alive, and I wasn't in any hurry to feed her the antidote. Sunday morning, I got up before sunrise, brewed coffee, sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I drafted an email with no recipient yet. Subject: Burstone, room 412, records attached. Please see attached documentation for your review. Additional files available upon request. Below that, I attached 3 PDFs, one of the ledger, one of the contractor's messages, and one of Greg's security footage. I didn't send it. Not yet. I just saved it to drafts, where I knew she might find it if she tried snooping again. Sometimes the most effective threat is the one you don't deliver. Just leave loaded on the table, safety off, and watch them squirm. By the end of that week, I could see it in her eyes, the uncertainty, the constant mental math. She didn't know if she should play offense or defense. And in that confusion, she made a mistake. A big one. One that would give me the perfect opening for the final act. But that's the thing about setting a stage. You can't rush the curtain drop. You wait until the audience is leaning forward in their seats, until they've convinced themselves they've guessed the ending. And then you give them something they never saw coming. Vanessa was about to learn that the hard way. It happened on a Tuesday. Vanessa thought I was at work until 6. She forgot my schedule had changed. I came home early, the garage door rolling up slow as I coasted in. Through the windshield, I saw the contractor's truck parked 2 houses down. Not directly in front, too obvious, but within walking distance. The front door was unlocked. Always a bad habit of hers. I stepped inside quietly, hearing the faint echo of music upstairs, her favorite playlist. The one she used when she was getting ready for showings. I didn't storm up. I didn't call out. I just moved slow, careful, like I was checking a fuse box in my own house. Halfway up the stairs, I heard voices. "He's getting suspicious," she was saying. "Then you need to push him to file first," the contractor replied. "If you do it, you look like the bad guy. If he does it, you can play the victim." That was enough. I walked up the remaining steps, turned into the bedroom doorway, and leaned on the frame. She froze mid-sentence. He spun around. Both of them looked like teenagers caught by a principal. "Don't let me interrupt," I said. "This sounds like valuable strategy." Vanessa recovered first. "What are you doing home?" "Collecting data," I said, pulling my phone out. I tapped the record button and pointed it toward them. "Say hi to the folder." The contractor swore under his breath, grabbed his jacket, and pushed past me. I didn't stop him. He was just a side character. Vanessa tried to stand her ground. "This is harassment, Daniel. You can't just..." I cut her off. "You've been trying to bait me into filing first." "I know. I heard you. Now it's documented. Thanks for that." She blanched, but I didn't give her a chance to regroup. I walked out, phone still recording, and left her standing in the room with nothing but the sound of her own breathing. That night, I sent the clip to Eli with the subject line, Act 2, on tape. The next 2 weeks were about pressure. Not enough to snap her, just enough to keep her guessing. First, I had my lawyer file a notice of intent to subpoena phone records from both her personal and work devices. It wasn't an immediate action, more of a legal placeholder, but the wording was clear enough to rattle her. Then, I quietly pulled my name from any joint liability on her brokerage's upcoming investment deal. Vanessa had a bad habit of mingling personal expenses with business funds. Without me as a guarantor, she'd have to explain her own credit history to the bank. She noticed. Oh, she noticed. One night, she cornered me in the kitchen. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I told you. I don't need to win in a day," I said. "I just need to make sure you can't." She opened her mouth, then shut it again. The fight was leaking out of her. Not gone. Vanessa didn't quit easily, but compromised. Eli called on a Friday with another update. "She's been to the Burstone twice this month. Not with the contractor. With someone new." I almost laughed. How does she have the energy? "She's panicking," Eli said. "People in panic make reckless choices. Keep letting her. If you want someone to fall hard, you have to let them believe they're about to land on their feet." That's why I told Vanessa we should reset things. One last vacation to see if we can salvage the marriage. She took the bait so fast it was almost insulting. Booked us a weekend at a coastal resort, the kind of place with champagne at check-in and couples massages on the brochure. What she didn't know was that I'd booked an adjoining suite. Not for a mistress, not for Eli, though he would have enjoyed the drama, but for my lawyer and a court officer. The plan was simple. Over dinner, I'd hand her final papers. But not just divorce papers. A settlement agreement already signed on my end, complete with asset divisions she had no leverage left to contest. The leverage? Every single piece of evidence we'd gathered, plus the little nugget Eli had been holding back. A sworn statement from the Burstone's head of security confirming she'd paid cash to avoid a paper trail and failed. Friday night, we arrived. She was in high spirits, ordering wine before the menus even hit the table. She made a few digs at my paranoia, clearly trying to frame herself as the reasonable one in case anyone overheard. Halfway through the main course, I slid a folder across the table. "For you." She smirked. "More of your little spy games." "Final act," I said. She opened it. Her smirk vanished. Page after page, photo after photo. Receipts, messages, sworn statements. The settlement terms on top. "You expect me to sign this?" she hissed. "No," I said, standing. "I expect you to realize you already have." She blinked. "What are you talking about?" "That vacation home you transferred to your sister? Fraudulent conveyance. Already reversed in court this morning. Those brokerage accounts you thought I didn't know about? Frozen. And the Burstone ledger? In the hands of your licensing board as of 10 minutes ago." Her mouth opened. No sound came out. I leaned down just enough so only she could hear. "You wanted me to file first. Congratulations. I just did. Effective 9 a.m. today. And you won't see a dime beyond what's in that folder." The next morning, I left early, packed my bag, checked out of the resort, and drove home before she even woke up. The adjoining suite? Empty. I'd canceled it. My lawyer didn't need to be there anymore. The job was done. At 11:03 a.m., I got the call from Eli. "She's trying to reach you. 6 missed calls. Do you want me to tell her where you are?" "No," I said. "Let her wonder." By noon, the first ripples hit. Her brokerage partners, blindsided by the licensing board inquiry, put her on immediate suspension pending review. Her social media, usually a parade of curated happiness, went silent. That evening, I sat in my garage, the oak box on the workbench. I emptied it piece by piece, emails, receipts, photos, into the shredder. Not because I needed to erase the past, but because the past had already done its work. When the last page disappeared, I closed the empty box and put it back in the drawer. The revenge hadn't been loud. There was no screaming, no public spectacle beyond what she'd created for herself. But it had been total. She'd expected a war she could win in the open. What she got was a siege, silent, methodical, inescapable. 3 weeks later, the settlement was final. She kept her car, some personal jewelry, and the clothes on her back. The lake house, the accounts, the business stake, all mine. The last time I saw her, she was stepping into the back of a rideshare outside the courthouse, sunglasses hiding eyes that had finally learned what losing felt like. She didn't look back. Neither did I, because by then, I'd already written the ending. And the best part? She never saw it coming.